delighted to be here in Dubai. And I brought with me a small gift. Pictures from my country. But this is not just an ordinary gift. These are not just ordinary pictures. These photographs were taken by His Majesty the King, King Jigme Kheset Namgyal Wangchuk. And he took these photographs during his royal tours around the country, to the remotest villages, to the highest mountains, to meet his subjects, to see whether they were happy. And for those who are not happy, His Majesty the King offers his personal support. This picture shows His Majesty being received by a community in the mountains that live at about 3,500 meters above sea level. And as you can see, they are delighted to receive their king. During my statement, there will be a series of pictures, all taken by His Majesty the King. The last slide is a picture of our Crown Prince. Again, that portrait was taken by His Majesty the King. So let's begin. 2016. How happy were you in 2016? Let's face it, 2016 was a difficult year. The world saw increased terrorism and war, desperate refugees and migrants. Brexit caused anxiety, and so did growing nationalism. Several countries saw impeachments and resignations, and some countries were affected by the Panama Papers and economic turmoil. And just in case all this didn't depress you enough, scientists announced that the year 2016 was the hottest year on record. So if you feel that climate change is real, if you feel there's too much social disruption and political instability, if you feel that our governments are failing you, you are not alone. The simple fact is that governments have not taken the happiness of their people seriously enough. Now, this is strange. As for thousands of years, people have studied happiness, taught happiness, and pursued happiness. From the Buddha and Confucius in the East, to Aristotle and Socrates in the West, and many in between, including the Prophet Muhammad and Al-Ghazali. Great philosophers and religious leaders have devoted their lives to teaching people how to be happy. Happiness is important. So why don't government take happiness seriously? Why don't government make happiness a public good rather than just relegating it as an individual pursuit? Now that's why this conference is important. And it is timely. After a difficult 2016, it's a good idea to kick off 2017 by talking about happiness in general and the role of the government in creating happiness in particular. The United Arab Emirates is well qualified to host this very important discourse. After all, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Prime Minister and ruler of Dubai, has declared in no uncertain terms categorically, the job of the government is to achieve happiness for people. I congratulate His Highness for his leadership in advancing human happiness in the UAE and abroad, and for organizing this important conference. My delegation and I are delighted to be a part of this conference, and we look forward to learning from all of you. I'm happy to report that happiness is taken seriously in my country too. In fact, almost 400 years ago, Shabdu Ngawanamge, our founding father, decreed that if the government cannot create happiness for its people, there is no purpose for the government to exist. Now, Bhutan is a small country, tucked away in the Himalayas, sandwiched between India and China. We have one of the smallest economies in the world and one of the smallest populations. We do have our constraints, but we've been blessed with extraordinary leaders. Our enlightened kings have consistently made the happiness of the people their overarching priority. This was most clearly demonstrated when, way back in the 1970s, our fourth king famously pronounced that for Bhutan, gross national happiness is more important than gross national product. Gross national happiness, GNH, is a holistic approach to development that aims to enhance the happiness and well-being of our people. Put simply, GNH steers the government away from chasing unrestrained material growth towards sustainable economic development balanced with social progress, cultural protection, environmental preservation, and good governance. GNH drives all development in Bhutan. And to make sure that development is truly holistic, GNH is built on 4 interrelated pillars. The first pillar of GNH is equitable socio-economic development. This pillar ensures that economic growth in my country is clean, green, and equitable, and that all citizens are provided free healthcare and receive free education. The second pillar, protection of culture, ensures that in this age of globalization, we do not lose our culture and traditions. Now, this is important, not just because we are a small country, but also because we are the last surviving Mahayana country. And as such, we are the world's custodians to a unique spiritual and cultural heritage. The third pillar of GNH is the preservation of environment. That's why 72% of our country is under forest cover. That's why more than half our country is protected as national parks, nature reserves, and wildlife sanctuaries. That's why we are a biological hotspot. That's why our country, our constitution, requires us to ensure that a minimum of 60% of Bhutan's total land shall be maintained under forest cover for all time. And that's why we are a carbon neutral country. In fact, we are a carbon negative country. Our forests sequester 3 times more greenhouse gases than what the entire country emits. The fourth pillar of GNH is good governance. Our kings, they first focused on making government transparent, accountable, and decentralized. And then they introduced democracy. Actually, they had to impose democracy. You see, our people didn't want democracy. So it was imposed by our king against the will of our people. What this means is that we are probably the only country in the world that didn't have to fight for democracy. Today, we are a democratic constitutional monarchy. And it is the elected government's responsibility to stay faithful to the ideals of gross national happiness. The elected government must create happiness for our people. But we politicians can't be trusted. We can get easily distracted. And that's why the Constitution dictates that the state shall strive to promote those conditions that will enable the pursuit of gross national happiness. It's enshrined in our Constitution. But what are those conditions that enable the pursuit of gross national happiness? The Center for Bhutan Studies, who are our main authority on GNH, have identified 9 domains as the conditions that influence the happiness and well-being of our people. The first 3 domains are straightforward: living standard, health, and education. The importance of these have been widely accepted by all governments for quite some time now. The next 2 domains have also gained currency among governments. They are environment and governance. The final 4 domains, however, are, I think, at the cutting edge of government development philosophy. These are psychological well-being, time use, cultural resilience, and community vitality. So there you have it. Living standards, health, education, environment, governance, psychological well-being, cultural resilience, community vitality, and time use are the domains, the conditions for the pursuit of gross national happiness. But how are they implemented, you may ask? How are they translated to public policy? This is where the Gross National Happiness Commission comes in. The GNH Commission is composed of ministers, government secretaries, and heads of autonomous agencies, and is chaired by the Prime Minister. The main job of the Commission is straightforward. It is to ensure that all government policies are GNH friendly. Incidentally, this also must be what occupies Her Excellency Ohud Al-Rumi, the UAE's Minister for Happiness. Your Excellency, it was such a pleasure to receive you in Bhutan. You are truly an ambassador of happiness to the world. In our case, the GNH Commission runs all policies through a GNH policy screening tool. The tool screens each and every policy against 22 indicators that influence the happiness of our population. Material well-being is obviously one of those indicators, but so is equity. And then there's transparency and anti-corruption. Gender is an important indication. Pollution, public health, values, and stress are some of the other indicators. The influences of proposed policies on each and every indicator are carefully studied, debated, and analyzed. And only if they pass the GNH screening tool are they approved for implementation. Many policies don't pass, so they are sent back for review, revision, and improvement till they are deemed to be GNH friendly. some policies face outright rejection. Recently, the government's mineral development policy was rejected by the Gnh Commission. It was considered too polluting and too unsustainable. Similarly, the Commission has decided that the government should not join the WTO for the time being. Some members felt that increased global trade may harm our environment and perhaps even erode traditional values. The tourism industry is subjected to a high-value, low-volume policy, and tourist numbers are strictly monitored. But please don't let that prevent you from visiting Bhutan. You should visit us soon, especially in the summer, when my country is cool, moist, and lush. So let me recapitulate. Gnh drives all development in Bhutan. The 4 pillars of Gnh are equitable socio-economic development, protection of culture, preservation of the environment, and good governance. To ensure that politicians and elected governments remain faithful to Gnh, the Constitution requires the state to promote those conditions that will enable the pursuit of cross-national happiness. The 9 domains of Gnh define those conditions that enable happiness. They are living standards, health, education, environment, good governance, and psychological well-being, cultural resilience, community vitality, and time use. The Gnh Commission subjects all government policies to a Gnh screening tool to ensure that policies contribute to the overall happiness and well-being of our people. So this now brings us to the important business of measuring Gnh. We know that what we count matters. What we count gets done. What we count ultimately influences policy agendas and the decisions of government. The Center for Bhutan has the important task of measuring Gnh. The center has conducted 2 national surveys so far, one in 2010 and the other in 2015. Unlike most other happiness surveys, Gnh Index is not just a subjective indicator of happiness. First, on subjective happiness, people were asked, taking all things together, how happy would you say you are? Overall, people recorded higher levels of subjective happiness in 2015 as compared to 2010, which is a good thing. But what's more interesting, what's more useful, is shifting measurement from the economy alone or from subjective happiness alone to include other critical domains of people's lives that lead to enhanced well-being. That shift in measurement is achieved by studying the 33 indicators that together make gross national happiness. These 33 indicators contribute to the 9 Gnh domains that define gross national happiness. These include standard indicators like income, housing, schooling, but also mental health, the number of healthy days, emotions, whether you are angry or not, and spirituality. Family, safety, and the environment are also considered. So is sleep sufficiency. Are you getting enough sleep? And government performance. Is the government performing or not? Measuring Gnh, as you can see, is a massive exercise. The 2015 survey had 149 questions, and each questionnaire took about an hour and a half to conduct. The 2010 survey was even bigger. It had 249 questions, and each questionnaire took a staggering 4 hours to conduct. So measuring GNH is difficult, but it is important, and the results are revealing. The Gnh Index increased from 0.743 in 2010 to 0.756 in 2015. So a slight improvement, an improvement nonetheless, in the overall happiness of our people. Overall, 91.2% of the people were measured to be happy. Here, the resulting condition, the word happy, simply means that 91.2% of our people enjoy sufficiency in at least half the GNH domains. 43.4% were recorded as deeply or extensively happy, meaning that they achieve sufficiency in at least 2/3 of the domains. Compared to 2010, the happiness of women increased more than the happiness of men, indicating reduced gender inequality, which is good. But they still lag behind the overall happiness of men. Not so good. Similarly, happiness for rural people increased, but those living in urban areas were still considerably happier. We need to do a lot more to improve rural livelihoods. Farmers are less happier than other occupational groups. Now, this is cause for concern, as most of our people are farmers. Single and married people are happier than divorced or separated people, clearly indicating that it may be a good idea to stay happily married. More educated people are more happier than those that are less educated. Now, here's an important finding. Compared to 2010, our people are getting more sleep, 14 minutes more sleep, and we believe that this contributes to their overall well-being. And here's another important finding. People's perception is that government performance has room for improvement. In other words, I need to work a lot harder. Government services have recorded an improvement, yet people's perception of government performance has eroded. And this gives our society a lot to think about. Anyway, you get the point. The Gnh Index provides an abundance of interesting data. The authority on GNH, who defined the 9 domains, who developed the GNH Commission's GNH screening tool, who defined the 33 indicators of the GNH survey, who actually conducted the survey, analyzed the results, and provided them, is Tashokarma Ura, the president of the Center for Bhutan Studies. All this can be a bit confusing. It is a lot, but it is absolutely fascinating, and it is fundamentally essential. And if you are interested in knowing more, Tashokarma Ura is the foremost authority on happiness. Ultimately now, the Gnh Index gives us a glimpse into the well-being of our people, a snapshot of our quality of life and how it is changing, for better or for worse. But it also provides a wealth of important information. This information is used to revise and define public policy with the aim of enhancing happiness. Let me give you 2 quick examples of how we use the results. The State of the Nation address I delivered last year was based entirely on the 2015 GNH survey. This compelled the government to go through the results carefully, understand them, and announce policy measures to address areas that need improvement. For example, the government announced measures to step up programs to improve rural livelihoods. And we decided to increase maternity leave threefold from 2 months to 6 months. The second way we are using the GNH survey results is by incorporating them into our 5-year planning cycle. We have already decided that the broad objectives and priorities of the next planning cycle will correlate precisely to the 9 GNH domains. And the 2015 GNH indicators will be used as a baseline for the plan. So this is it, a summary of what GNH means to us in Bhutan, how it is used to define government policy, and more importantly, how the happiness of our people is prioritized as a public good. Are we there yet? No, we are not. We have a long way to go. Are we the happiest people in the world? Certainly not. We take happiness seriously, but we have a long way from realizing the ideals of a true GNH society. Plus, we have our challenges: poverty, unemployment, inequity, climate change. These are just a few of our challenges. But we do have one big asset: our King. His Majesty the King has reminded us that GNH simply means development with values, and that GNH is a bridge between the fundamental values of kindness, equality, and humanity, and the necessary pursuit of economic growth. In this sense, His Majesty the King acts as our national conscience, guiding us towards making wise decisions for all Bhutanese for a better future. I believe that the world has also begun to take wise decisions for a better future. For instance, the United Nations has declared 20th of March as International Happiness Day. This gives governments the opportunity to reflect and to think about if their priorities and policies are contributing to the long-term happiness and well-being of their people. More importantly, the international development community has adopted the Sustainable Development Goals as an ambitious to-do list aimed at transforming our world. I wish to acknowledge the UNDP Administrator Helen Clark's pivotal role in getting both the International Day of Happiness and the Sustainable Development Goals through. Thank you, Excellency. Slowly but surely, governments are accepting that the solution to happiness and well-being clearly lies in changing the very purpose and the goal of development. If the basic purpose of development were changed from the pursuit of profit to the pursuit of higher well-being in all its dimensions, the true level of happiness in the planet would certainly go up. This is what the Stiglitz-Sen-Fatosi Commission has stated. This is what the Beyond GDP initiative in Europe has recognized. This is what the Sustainable Development Goals are all about. This is what each and every international GNH conference we have conducted has concluded. And this is what the array of new well-being initiatives to measure happiness has testified. Here in the UAE, you have a Minister for Happiness, a Minister for the Future, a Minister for Tolerance. This is groundbreaking. You are certainly ahead of the pack in defining your ultimate goal as the happiness and well-being of the Emirati people. 2016 may have been a difficult year, and 2017 may also be off to a rough start. But given the growing interest in happiness and well-being and in gross national happiness, the years ahead are filled with promise and hope. Bhutan's national anthem ends with a solemn prayer. May the sun of peace and happiness shine over all people. I would like to conclude today with a simple prayer. May the sun of peace and happiness shine over all people, all over the world, for all time. Thank you very much, and Tashidele.